So, welcome back, everybody. So we're now going to have the part of the afternoon when our members speak. So I'm going to go around to everybody and ask, starting, I think, with Peter Hilbron, only because you're next to me on my little screen. Do you have anything, any progress or anything you want to tell us?
No, I'm fine.
About your research,
Well, not for this group. I mean, I'm not normally a part of the group.
No, I know.
But no, I'm looking forward to Jeanette's session in 2 weeks' time. That's more my area.
Yeah.
But I did actually, as I said, I did some research for a member of our U3A who was giving a talk on one of the Russells. Very interesting talk, and I think maybe Adrian Ross and I have corresponded about that. But this was again a gentleman originally from the Isle of Sheppey, Jewish family. He went out to Japan, to I think Yokohama, set up a shop and ran a business. And sadly, he married, not sadly, but he married a Japanese lady, and sadly, they perished in what very few people know as the 1923 Yokohama disaster, when an earthquake struck and devastated the town, albeit that they lived on a ridge above the port area. But he died in that and lost his, obviously the business went as well. But not a relative of mine at all. But as I say, an interesting bit of research done for a friend who, strangely enough, although the Russell family came from the Isle of Sheppey, they married into a family from Plymouth, another, I think maybe Barnard's there, another large Jewish community in a seaport in the 19th century. So they weren't just in London, Manchester, Leeds, and Glasgow.
Right, thank you. Bernard, did you have another question before you have to leave?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to throw in some finds of the, well, I was going to say week, but it's mostly the last 2 days. And it's to do with the fact that when I was small, my mum used to talk about her family living in a triangle. And the triangle was Amsterdam, Antwerp, and London. And they moved around in this triangle, and where anybody was born was almost a question of which day of the week it was. So there would be sort of siblings, one born in Amsterdam, one born in Antwerp, one born in London. But I'd never really understood that until I was doing some research, and for various reasons, I ended up on the Antwerp city immigration records and found that my grandmother's family, which went by the name of Zomerplach being a name that means summer plague. And it was chosen by presumably an anti-Semitic Dutch official when my fourth great-grandfather, obliged to choose a surname, chose the name Zomerblach with the B rather than a P, and that simply means peddler or trader. And so we can say that any Zomerplach family dates from the early 19th century from that one family. And I found in the Antwerp city records 2 lots of Zomerplach families migrating into Antwerp, one from Amsterdam, one from London, all in about 1906. And all of the children had the same names, so they repeat in both households. And the link is that in addition to being either brothers or cousins, the heads of households were diamond polishers. So that was one find. Second find is the Felix archive for the city of Antwerp, which has got a lot of useful stuff. And the third one is the archive of the Caserna Dossin, which was the Dossin barracks in Mechelen or Malin, where there was the transit camp for the removal of the Jews to the either concentration or extermination camps. And that has a collection of several thousand photos. So anybody who's got family in that area might be interested. And the fourth one, and I'm not going to give any details of it, and I will talk about this when I do my talk on the 10th of April, but I went through my grandfather's medical records from World War I, his military records, which he would never have seen probably, and discovered some very interesting medical connections that my mother, who died very young, would not have known about, and that I wouldn't have known about until this week. So there's a kind of genetic medical link, which I think is going to be something that other people may find interesting. And I'll talk about that in April. So those were my kind of useful finds for the week. My total failure, as always, is I've got loads more documentation about my father and his family. I can go back to my grandfather and a great-grandfather and my grandmother, and still the only information about where they come from is Russia. And since most of them, I think, were from Ukraine, it's an utter failure. So while I succeed on one side, I fail miserably on the other. And with that, I'm going to leave you, but I hope you have a useful session.
Thank you so much, Bernard. Thank you for your contribution. Next, I'm going to Hava.
Oh, hang on, Doreen. I think Irina's got a hand up. I'm just wondering if she wanted to comment on that last point.
Right.
Irina, if you could unmute.
Just unmute myself. Right, Ukrainian document. Oh, he's gone. Just wanted to ask which part of Ukraine, etc. Because at the moment I'm researching my family history, and it is Ukraine. So, by the way, do you have publications regarding Ukraine?
No.
No.
In short. We did have a talk by Janet Silverman, who works at Ancestry Professionals, Ancestry Pro Genealogists, and she's done a lot of work in the Ukraine and used to head up Jewish Gen's Ukraine SIG. But given that we don't have one specifically, I would probably point you towards the Jewish Gen Ukraine SIG, and if you're not already a member of that, there are discussion groups. But I've done some Ukrainian research, but to be honest, it is difficult, and that's one of the few times I've hired a professional to go into the Uzhgorod archives and get my record, and it worked. But it's almost impossible to do if you're not in the country.
Yes, so that's why part of my sort of plan is, when it's a little bit quieter, to travel to Ukraine, because I know precisely which archives I need to go to. But I just wanted some tips.
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind.
Jewish Gen, and drop me an email if you like, and I can probably piece a few things together for you of places to start looking. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Irina. Irina, can I send you an email about the Ukraine? Would that be okay? Thank you. Moving on, Hava.
Yes. Yeah, you know why it says Hava? Because my email wasn't recognized anymore. And so I gave them my Gmail one, which starts with Hava. So now on all the documentation, it doesn't say Valerie anymore. It says Hava. But that it doesn't matter. I know it's me.
To revert to your Hebrew name now?
No, because that's what I used in Israel. I had Hava.Herman at whatever. So it recognizes my second email now. It doesn't matter as long as I can get in.
So do we call you Hava or do we
You
call
can, I will answer.
how's your week been? Have you done any additional
So
research?
I've had a very strange sort of excitement. The excitement is not, unfortunately, to link me with my Anglo part of my research, but the one in Turkey. I have found that my great grandfather, sorry, had three other siblings and him, and equally so, where we had 8 children in the family, so did this great granddad. And so we've got almost the same amount of new family members as I already had.
I'm
So
not going to go
doubled. It's doubled one day.
Congratulations.
Unbelievable. Thank you. Sadly, they don't keep anything. None of them are Jewish. And they've all married out. So but the fact that we actually found each other was with our DNA. And it's taken 5 years for everyone to sort of look for a second and third cousin, and that's how it all came about. But very exciting.
Yeah.
Some of them live in Norwich. We were on holiday that area and met some already. Great, having great fun.
Oh, that's terrific. Good,
but I wanted to point out what Bernard was saying, that like on my paperwork, all my families, each one says they came from Warsaw, and that's all I've ever been able to find. And then on my mother's side, the same thing, going back 2 more generations, great grandfather also came from Warsaw. And it's so frustrating.
Yes, I know, but I'm going to move on from that, bearing in mind with the Anglo-Jewish. So
yes.
So I'm going to move on to Adrian. Adrian, can you unmute possibly? Adrian with us? Adrian Ross, and
sorry, I was flitting around as I always do, which is why I never show my face, because I'm always moving around. I'm not very good at sitting still. No, I haven't really done any research at all, but I've had 2 messages from my DNA, and when I looked at the names that they were researching, I was very pleased, because it was on my mother's father's side, who go back to being in England from the early 18th century. So I will be getting in touch with them to see what they know. But I'm afraid that I haven't really had time to do any other research.
Oh no, it'll always be there for you. So this new family, are they part of the Russell family?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's not my new. I mean, I know a fair bit about them, but these 2 people are related on that side. Yes, I'm. So the person that was here was my something like 8th great-grandfather, 8 times great-grandfather, and his name was David. Yes, David Levy, aka Russell, and I think it looks to me he lived near Russell Square in London. I think that's where he might have taken the name from. But before that it was Levy. So but I can't find anything else about him, and I don't know anybody else that knows anything about him. So
dates that we're talking about.
He was here in about 1715, 1720, something like that.
So it's difficult because we haven't got any.
No records at all.
Yeah.
No. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you've traced back as far as him.
Well, I didn't do it. No, there's a guy in Australia called Dan Russell, who is and I can't and the tree was on Roots Web, which you can't really access now, and so I can't get hold of him. I've been trying to find out where Dan Russell is, but now, but I can't get hold of him to find out where the tree is. And I've looked on several other platforms, but I can't find the tree. But it's extensively researched. It's fantastic. It's got something like 15,000 people on it.
As we always say, we have to check everything.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So
Adrienne, my research had me found a Moses Russell.
Yes, that's right.
1762 in London.
Mm-hmm.
And he married a Sarah Russell. I think her maiden name was Levin from Russia. So, but beyond him, potentially is a Michael Russell, but I've never actually been certain it's the right one. So
yes, it will be. I think all the Russells are actually related. There are a lot of them. I haven't actually got the basic family tree in front of me, but
yeah.
there are lots of living, well, I imagine living relatives, people born in the 1940s.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Russell, Robin Russell, Shirley Russell. I mean, Morris, the famous Morris, who died in Yokohama, had lots of children with his Japanese wife, and the name Salter appears in the generations following that. So you probably know that anyway.
Yeah, I'm sorry about this. Oh,
all right. Adrienne, I just feel it's important that you check it yourself.
No, he's put sorry to interrupt you, Doreen. We've had this before. Everybody that is on the family tree has a source, and he's checked everything out. He spent years and years and years doing it, and everything is checked out.
Yeah. Right, so you'll be trying to contact him somehow.
Well, I have been for a few years now, and I haven't been able to. So I'm not sure what to do next.
No, it's difficult.
Well, there's Facebook, and of course there's
yes.
You could try the equivalent of whatever the Australian telephone directory is.
Yes, I've done that.
But
right. Dan Russell or Daniel Russell happens to be a very, very common name. So, you know, I mean, if he had a name like Lee Dworkin, then, you know, it might be easier.
Oh, that's ever so common. That's ever so common.
I told the story before, but there is a Lee Dworkin who happens to be a colorectal surgeon, and let's just say it's not my speciality, but we occasionally get mixed up, you know.
Wonderful.
Brilliant.
But Adrienne, I mean, I don't know if you've tried other types of social media, but you know, the LinkedIn sometimes gets at a different type of person, you know, more business-like compared to the you know, more consumer nature of Facebook or Twitter. But if you haven't tried Twitter, definitely try it. And you never know. I mean, he doesn't sound like a millennial, but when we're trying to find younger people, they probably use completely different things like Snapchat and Instagram and other things. So there's loads to try, but you need, well, you obviously need him still to be alive, but
yes, I'm hoping that he is.
Yeah, which may be an issue, but you just have to keep trying, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Lee. So Anne Papa, do you want to unmute? And
yes, I have.
what you're doing?
I very sadly found that in the name SIG, which has been transferred to Joseph in England, many died in the Holocaust, but I don't know how near they are to me. They look like probably quite near relations, like the same generation as my grandparents, the late 1800s. Now also I found someone called Harry Kay, who my aunt married, but it wasn't the right family, but our DNA matches, but we can't find any link, so we've dismissed it as not possible.
Right.
Two things I've been doing lately.
Yeah.
Waiting to hear from Marty Myers. He's looking into my aunt's birth certificate in Poland. I must get in touch with him.
Yes. Okay. Well, it's not a 5-minute job, this, is it? Thank you, Anne. So, Raymond, hi.
Hello, Doreen.
Hi. So what have we been doing with ourselves?
Well, for me, I'll need to ask Irina a question in a second. The usual Anglo-Isaacs connected to the Jessels, connected to the Levies, vice versa, in and out. I've continued doing that. But Jessel, Irina, are you aware of that name in the Medway area? Because I ask because in the early days, I made contact with a previously unknown Jessel cousin, had a long chat on the phone and some paperwork was sent, but I seem to remember in passing, there were some Jessels in the local government or an MP or definitely the judiciary. I can connect there.
There was a
Does the name ring a bell to you in your researches, Jessel?
Not off the top of my head. I need to double check the tables that I sort of pulled out all the information from the directories and everything. I cannot recall the name Jessel anywhere, but again, there'll always be somebody who we miss. So
well, I've checked all the usual sources and even Doreen's great books. There's some bits and pieces in there, but I can't find anything solid, something to really get my teeth into there. Just out of curiosity.
Would you email me and with information, and I'll have a look. Okay.
Well, that's kind of you. Thank you, Irina.
Raymond,
That's all right. No problem.
Isn't there? I think he was an MP called Toby Jessel.
Yes,
That's right. He's a relative. Yes, an MP. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Right.
Isaacs. Well, I could go on about Isaacs. Like many of us can. I've been working with Nigel Cederer, our secretary. I have a very loose connection to his Isaacs via the Jessels, believe it or not. So I've been doing that on and off, but we keep coming across different people submitting trees, and they just disagree with both Nigel's tree and my tree. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, but each and every one swears that they are right. Well, they're not. They're wrong. I'm right. No, not really. Just thought I'd throw that in.
We have to go by the facts, don't we?
The facts, where everybody claims you've got the facts right, ma'am.
It's like Megan, her truth and our truth, isn't it?
Right.
It's the truth and the truth.
I found that I'm related, I'm within somewhere along the line of the Goldsmiths, or well, Smids, wasn't it, with a D originally, talking about politics, that mob. I think they're in the news that I'm being Boris's friends, in inverted commas, recent times. But yeah, that was a connection, very remote, but I'm there.
Right. So that's very interesting, isn't it?
Anyway, that's about it for me, Doreen.
Okay, thank you, Raymond. So I'm going to go to Susie next. Susie, anything to? Susie, sorry, I can't hear you. Are you muted?
Sorry, I said I've been very busy doing stuff with our village archives for people who've come in with problems, which has nothing to do with being Jewish. On my own tree, I've been doing lots of very random people, as I call it. I did do one when you were talking about misinformation. I had some detail from a cousin of my mother's who must have died 30 years ago, I think. And he, long before he'd done anything on computer, and it turned out that he'd ascribed the wrong father to this person. And the the father being born in about 1760, but in England. And but this person was very interesting, and he had a very interesting will, which I really enjoyed reading, you see. And so I didn't want to lose him from my tree. So I thought, well, there weren't that many Jews in England then. So I kept tracking down to life of his children, because I got the will, to see if any name rang a bell. And then the name Platnow came out. I thought, we've got Platnows on our tree. So I was able to find the right one, and I've tagged him on there. So I've still got his will, you see. I didn't want him floating away because he was rather an interesting person, even though he's not really related. So that was my only little.
Yeah, but sometimes one can get involved in things just out of interest.
Oh, I do. I enjoy that. I was doing something rather than this person was giving advice on not to get waylaid, you know, and I thought, why not? That's all the fun of it anyway. It's been very interesting talk. I'm going to have to disappear because I've got to go to something in our village hall, and I better not be late. But so I'm going to disappear now. But thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you for the meeting. Bye-bye, and I will see you all again soon.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you, Susie. So the next person to come to is Bobby Jacobs, actually. Bobby?
Hi. Yes, I've got a bit of a funny story, but it's from a couple of weeks ago. I discovered that my father's first cousin sounds like a bit of a rotter. He was in prison several times. His children were taken into care. And then when I looked at the dates, I thought, this can't be right. You know, the dates seemed wrong. And it was somebody else entirely, the same name, but no connection. And then I found my father's real cousin. But I know you have to be so careful and check everything. But I have a query of something that went this week, which I don't know if anybody can advise me on. This is my grandfather's brother. Now I've seen I've ordered actually the United Synagogue marriage authorization, because I found him on their site through JGSB and SGB rather. And I've ordered that, but I cannot find a UK, an English marriage certificate. And I have searched and searched. I've done different names. I've done different dates. Can anybody suggest where I can look for that?
Which, what year we're talking about?
1890. The date is on the marriage authorization, the United Synagogue authorization, which I've ordered, and it doesn't give very much information, but it does give the date of the marriage, supposedly. Right. And yet I can't find anything at all on FreeBND or on the GRO website or anything.
Well, where did they get married, Bobby?
They got married in London. They got married in London.
In a house or in the synagogue?
No, in a synagogue, and it says on the authorization thing, it says synagogue new. Now I don't know whether that's a name, the new synagogue, or if it is a new synagogue.
Does it give an address of the
No, but it might do when I get the actual authorization. It only gives you very limited. It gives you the name of the groom, the name of the bride, the date of the wedding, and where. That's all it says. So I know it's the right person because I know the name of his wife, but I just can't find, you know.
I would suggest it's a problem with the name in the records, that they're there, but under a different name. I know,
I don't know. I've tried. I think Lee maybe, Lee, have you got a suggestion?
Well, you may not like it, but just to say, I transcribed quite a lot of these marriage authorizations, and sometimes, unfortunately, it basically says marriage did not take place. Now, I guess that means, you know, you tried to have a nice Jewish wedding and something went wrong for some reason. you know, sometimes they found, oh, the groom is already married to someone left behind in South America or something like that, and it couldn't legally take place. But I assume these are your relatives and you know they actually married, but
yeah, I actually
stranger things have happened, and sometimes people couldn't legally marry and they cohabited anyway, but apologies if that's unpalatable. But
I actually discovered, you know, that they existed through Edmonton cemetery records.
Right.
So because there was this couple and they had a 3-month-old child who died, unfortunately, and they're all buried at Edmonton, where a lot of my family are. So, but until I can actually go there, I suppose I won't know, because there's no pictures of the stone. It's too long ago. So, well, there aren't. I've asked, I've put on that, you know, if anybody can I have a photo? But, you know, that depends on whether they go or not. I will go. I've been before. I will go when I can, and that might give me an answer.
I would suggest, Bobby, that it's the spelling of the name is slightly different from the one on the marriage, and you have to be a bit inventive to try to find them in the
I have tried various different ones. I mean, I've been in touch with family in America and Canada who spelt it slightly differently, so I've tried their spellings. And anyway, when the actual authorization comes through, it might give me a little more information. It'll give me the name of the brother. They usually do, I think. And
with Jewish families, how often one member of the family can even spell it differently from another member.
Yeah.
Of the family, which,
anyway, I'll keep looking, but thank you.
But the bride and groom's names are usually in both Hebrew and English, so you know, you might learn a bit more from the Hebrew, you know, in case you don't know the father's name of the bride and the groom. There's that there, but it is in you know, cursive Ivrit, so you know, it can be quite difficult to read at times, but it is there.
I know his anglicized name was Israel, but it was Yisrael. So you know, and I've tried both those, and anyway, I'll keep trying. But thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll find it, Bobby. Just to be a bit inventive with their names.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, you're lucky that you found the marriage authorization, because for my great grandparents, you know, I'm sure they would have married before they had their 10 children. But I've been looking for that civil or you know, marriage authorization, civil marriage record or marriage authorization for 25 years. And the only explanation I've had is, oh, it must have been a stille chuppah, you know, basically a rabbi just married them on the side and there's no paperwork. But, you know, that happened too, but at least you've got a marriage authorization, which suggests they really did marry in the new synagogue. You know?
Well, I will have when it arrives.
Yeah.
But there are mistakes, you know, everywhere. And there was one that I found at the Best Inn, where my husband's grandparents, their marriage wasn't down in the registers, although they had the marriage registration certificate, but it hadn't been put into their registers. It had been a mistake. It was at the top of the page, where a page turns over, and they'd actually missed it out.
Oh, right.
No, I mean, I've transcribed some where it skips a record, and unfortunately what that means is when they were photographing them, they didn't photograph the page in between, and who knows what's on it. That family is just a bit unlucky, and it's very, very hard to go back and look at the original documents. They're buried somewhere deep in the LMA, and we're not allowed to look at them. So.
Okay, well, I don't know if that helps, Bobby, but
thank you. It does, and as I said, I'll keep looking, and thank you all.
All right, Jacqueline Hobson, do you want to unmute, Jackie? Jackie, can you put
Thank you very much, Doreen. I'm actually very new to all of this, and I've had a lot of frustrating time searching online and getting nowhere. I have got a couple of basic questions that people here may be able to help me with. My mother's parents were born in 1896, both apparently in Poland, but moved to Germany and married there, and my mother and her sister were born there. a German friend, managed to get some information from Darmstadt for me. And I'm a bit confused because it says my grandmother was born in Łódź, but it says Rusland after that, not Poland. And my grandfather says he was born in Czarnowice, Poland. Excuse my pronunciation. I've no idea if that's right. But there seem to be several places called Czarnowice, and we visited one, and it was a tiny little hamlet. And since my grandfather was a baker, it doesn't seem, I don't know, might have got the wrong place.
The big Czarnowice was, it was partially, at some point it was the Russian Empire, then it was the Romania. So it was quite a, I think, probably it's my hunch, it would be quite a substantial town, quite an important town.
Right.
That's the main one.
So where is that? Because the one I looked at, well, the one we visited was near the German border. It was just over the German border, and it was this tiny little place.
Can I answer, Jacqueline?
Yes, thank you, Lee.
You may want to go to JewishGen and just type in probably Czernowitz and see how many different Czernowitzes it comes up with, and then you can try each of them in turn.
Right.
I think there are some members of the society who have family from a Czernowitz, but I can't say if it's the same one, like Jeanette Rosenberg. I'm fairly sure.
I remember her saying it.
Yeah, and you know, the next meeting on the 5th of December is actually the German Special Interest Group. So there'll be a workshop session like this, and she can go into more detail. But the country that somewhere is less important than the place. And so I think you said Łódź.
Yeah, it's Russia.
It was Russia for a certain period of time.
Okay.
So basically there was no such thing as Poland until the end of the First World War, when it came back. But between 1797, when Prussia, Russia and Austro-Hungary gobbled up all of Poland, you know, it didn't exist. Now it did come back a little bit as the Kingdom of Poland that existed for a while. But if you want to understand how the borders changed, again, JewishGen is a good source, because it will show you, you know, for Łódź, you just type in, you know, LODZ, and it'll show you, you know, who thought they owned it in different periods of time. And that can be important, but you know, probably the records you want to find are going to be in the Łódź archives, and they're not really available online at the moment as much as many other places in Poland. But if you visit the Łódź archives, you can use their computer systems and bring them all up. And if you can do that, you can also get someone to do that for you. If you don't have the appetite to go and visit Poland, there will be someone who could be hired to go in and do that. So
I don't have the Polish. I presumably you need Polish to.
Well,
I'm learning German at the moment, and I've spent months
I'm
doing
learning
that.
Polish at the moment, but when I visited the Łódź archives, I just went in and spoke English, and it was fine. Now, maybe their English wasn't quite as good as mine, but their Polish was an awful lot better than mine, put it that way. So, you know, they are trying to help, and there are, you know, there are huge numbers of Łódź records. They are gradually coming online, but there's a huge project at JRI Poland because there's so many to do. But it was a very large Jewish centre.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you very much indeed.
Is there anything on the Anglo-Jewish scene you wanted to tell us? Or
no, not really. No, my mother came to England, but no. We are a very limited family, what's left of us in England.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Moving on, Sharon, happy to see you here. Is there anything you want to ask or say or tell us? Sharon Hintz, do you want to unmute? Unmute. Sharon. can you possibly unmute?
Thank you, Doreen. But at the moment, I don't. I think I have one looming, though. When I get a little more specific, I'll speak up.
Sure. Okay. Okay. No comment to make on any aspect of it at
No,
all?
I wondered if the missing marriage had happened in Ireland or Scotland or something like that.
Okay, thank you. Brian, we haven't asked you.
Hello, Doreen. Yes.
Sorry, I haven't come to you earlier.
That's fine, that's fine. Recently, I've just come across Crispin Street in Spitalfields has raised its head again. I've got a few family members born and raised there, and I just recently found that a third cousin 4 times removed was born in there, born in Crispin Street in 1874, which was Sophia Mendoza. Sophia Mendoza was a third cousin 4 times removed. But what's interesting about it is she married an Israel Samuels, and they had children. They had at least 6 children. And one of them, of course, very importantly, was Sir Alexander Barnett Samuels, who was born in 1905 and died in 1986. He was one-time borough councillor in London, and then later became a government advisor on transport and was knighted for his efforts. So a little connection there with family that I found.
Yeah.
Talking about the Mendoza family, interested with some correspondence I've been into, looking into the De Castros from Spain, who, when they left Spain and came to Europe, Amsterdam mostly, changed their name to Mendoza. And a lot of people are still looking into the origins of the Mendoza family, right into the Inquisition and beyond that. And there's still a lot of interest from correspondence I've been in touch with in Australia, main chap called Maury Prendergast, and New Zealand, who are still interested in academic work that's going on in Portugal now, with the academics in the university there in Portugal, looking at the same Inquisition files and coming up with slightly different answers to what academics in Spain were looking at, with going back that far with language difficulties, I think, and translations. So nothing's definite there, but we're still interested and they're still digging. And if anything really props up later on, I'll let you know.
That's really quite fascinating, isn't it? Actually.
Yeah.
And regarding Alexander Samuels, well, there must be quite a lot to find out about him.
Oh yes, it's very interesting. Long history.
Yeah. So it's nice to find a relative who,
if distant, yeah, by marriage, yeah.
Something well known about him. Thank you, Brian. Is there anything else?
No, thank you. No, it's been interesting talk earlier on. Enjoyed it very much.
Interesting, and thanks to Irene. Is there anybody I've missed out of asking? So it seems not. So Lee.
Yeah,
Was that Miss Lee? Most important person.
No. I don't know if this is going to be helpful or not, but I think you all know I don't have much Anglo-Jewish in me. But in general, you know, when I'm researching my people in England, at some point it runs out, and the same happens to you, even if it's at a much earlier time. And you know, what I find quite helpful when the records run out is to try some American research, because probably at the same time as your people came to England, maybe there's a sibling who went to America, and in general the American records are much richer. And you know, the trouble with the English records is the women tend to disappear, and so I still don't know the name of my great grandmother on the Dworkin side, but I think I just found the existence of 2 records in America for siblings, and guess what, if they're siblings they had the same mother and father, and so I'm just looking into SS5 social security applications for people who died well, they were probably born, you know, well over 120 years ago, and maybe that will be helpful to your Anglo research as well. There might be a record in America, but who knows? You know, if you're looking for something at the beginning of the 1700s, it could be quite difficult, but you know, certainly works for me. You know, in the mid, you know, from 1850 onwards, there might be something. I don't know when Social Security records started, but there could be something else, and it's kind of a lateral thought to get you through a brick wall, basically.
So
so that's what I wanted to share.
Ancestry Worldwide comes in useful. You know, it's expensive, but it does cover America.
Yeah, worldwide.
Yeah. I think Sharon wants to say something on that too.
I've just joined that actually, worldwide, and I think it's going to be great. Yeah.
Just to let you know, Ancestry at the moment, Ancestry Global, if your local library have a subscription with Ancestry, they do allow, with the library card and the PIN probably, access remotely till the end of December because of the pandemic. So you don't even need to visit your library.
Thank you.
I don't know if, do they have the worldwide arena?
Yes. Well, it depends obviously whether your library is subscribed or not, but I do know, for example, the Medway libraries, we do have worldwide.
No, I agree. I mean, I've always said that the majority of Jews did in fact go to America rather than here. So quite often we might well have relatives who we don't know about, whose part of the family went to America rather than came here. And in fact, I just found somebody through DNA on my husband's side, Bueno de Mesquita, who turned up in one of his matches, and the family is very closely related to his family. And when I contacted him, he was so delighted that he brought in other members of the family, and they now want to do a Zoom meeting.
Lovely.
Because there's quite often branches in America. The Anglo-Jewish population, as some of you have seen what I spoke about when I talked about his family, a lot of them seem to wander off all over the place to the gold rush in California, and they were very much worldwide travelers in the 19th century. So a lot of them did end up in America, which opens up a new field, doesn't it? It's good to have a success with DNA. So,
Doreen, speaking of Anglo-Americans, I think Sharon wanted to come in.
Sharon?
2 comments. I raised my finger to try to reply to Lee's question as to when did Social Security start in the States. The answer is it's a post-war thing, just like national insurance and the NHS. But the applications, as you know, are different than the deaths, which don't start to be online until the early 1960s. What I can tell you is that when it was established, my memory says 47, but at any rate, it's shortly after the war. My great-grandfather was very insulted by the idea that the government would think he couldn't take care of himself and refused to cash the checks and put them all.
Sharon, your voice faded out a little bit. I didn't catch all of it, everything you said.
Do I need to get my earphones, Lee?
No, it's your internet connection, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, I've got some of it.
The other thing I was going to say, if you can hear any of it, is that in the second half of the 19th century, Liverpool was a very important port, but New York was an even more important port. For people coming from Europe, New York was something like 75% of all of the voyages, and that's why New York is the place to look. And also, even if you're not looking in New York, there are, and the difference between New York and the next nearest port is huge. It's like New York is 75 and the next nearest is 13, something like that. That would be Boston. And then the other thing you have to remember, that as a destination during the time period in which Jewish people were emigrating out of Eastern Europe in particular, America was the chosen destination and the eventual home, again, of the overwhelming majority of them. And I have in another presentation, I have the exact figures on this, but so Lee's counsel to look in America for others is exactly the right thing to say.
I absolutely agree, actually. Okay.
I mean, just to give you a specific example, I mean, you know, my great grandfather, who had a Dworkin name, you know, I met him, so, you know, he didn't die till the 1960s. 69, I believe it was. His brothers died in the 50s, and so there were social security records for them, even though they were born in the previous century. So if you do need to reach back in time, you can do. The other thing, if you don't want to look at social security, is the marriage records in some parts of America, particularly New York, do name the parents of the bride and groom, not just the fathers as in England. So again, that's the reason the women disappear in the English records, but you know, you can get lucky. They'll be there in the American records. And just one other point, I was looking at some marriage records just earlier this week, or maybe last. I went to a Mormon family search center in Watford, and on Ancestry, I managed to find the marriage record, some details about it, but on Family Search, it actually showed me the certificate there and then. So if you're a new researcher, or even if you're a seasoned one like myself, you live in Ancestry and think you're doing everything, but you really should try Find My Past, Family Search, all the other sites, and they might have even more. So.
And in my own family, my grandmother, her family, two brothers came here and then settled in New York, and a sister came out of Poland, as then went with her mother to Palestine, and then settled in New York as well. So, you know, a lot of us might have transatlantic roots that we don't know anything about. And in fact, it's very useful. One success story is that I had the bad sheep of our family, my father's brother, who went off to New York, as we thought New York, many years ago, and cut with his family and cut themselves off completely. And it took me 50 years. Unfortunately, my father was no longer with us, to find his daughter and his wife again in America, which I finally found her in Florida. So it is a good place to look, actually, because people did sometimes go there, especially when they wanted to cut themselves off from their families. They did go off to America sometimes, and Australia as well, of course. So another point, I suppose. Any other comments to make? Lee?
That's it from me.
Okay, so if it's all right with everybody, I will close this session of the Society and look forward to seeing you all again.
Thank you very much.
And keep
well, everyone.
Keep safe.
Thank you.
Be well.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Irina. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Irina.
You're welcome. I'll email you.